So, yes, you get two videos today. The glitchier the merrier, right? First glitch. I was on a road trip out west, cruising along the empty highways, enjoying the solitude. At some point, I made a wrong turn and ended up on a narrow, unpaved track cutting through seemingly endless flatlands, and then saw a sign for a town, something like Maryville 2 miles. Figuring I could get directions, I trudged on, but no matter the distance I drove, the signpost remained the same. Maryville 2 miles. I eventually gave up, drove back the way I came, found the right highway, and continued my road trip. Curiosity got the better of me later. I searched Maryville on maps, no such town. Next glitch. This happened a few months back. I live in a rather large city and use public transport to commute to work. One day, while returning from work, I started talking with an elderly gentleman on the bus. He was a chatty person, opened up about his life, his service in the military, the places he had visited, and even his beloved late wife. Reaching what I thought was my stop, I said goodbye and got off the bus. It was then I looked around and immediately felt a chill run down my spine. The neighborhood I was in was extremely unfamiliar. It was like I had stepped off the bus into a whole different city. Panicking, I tried to get back on the bus, but it had already pulled away from the stop. I pulled out my phone to access the map app. It confirmed my worst fears. I was about 200 miles away from my actual location. I checked my watch. It was only 25 minutes since I had gotten on the bus. I was completely dumbfounded. Just as I was contemplating my next steps, another bus pulled up and I got on without a second thought, willing to head anywhere but there. I finally managed to get home after a few bus changes and several hours. Next glitch. I work at a large hospital as a doctor. One day I was taking the elevator from the 6th floor to the ground floor. As it turned out, the elevator malfunctioned and started dropping at a terrifying speed. The fall seemed to take forever, and I remember bracing for impact. Suddenly, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, the elevator was motionless, and the doors opened onto the ground floor like everything was normal. I was shaken and would have taken the day off, but I had a lot of patients to see. I never figured out what happened in that elevator ride. Over time, I've convinced myself it was some sort of blackout or hallucination, but I still remember the terrifying drop. Next glitch. One evening as I was walking home from work, I took a shortcut through an alley behind a row of old buildings. The alley was usually deserted, but this time I noticed a figure at the far end. It was a woman standing completely still. As I got closer, I realized something was off. She seemed to be flickering, as if caught in a flickering, glitching video. Her features would disappear and reappear in rapid succession. It was disorienting and I was freaked out, so I hesitated for a moment but continued walking, wanting to get a closer look because I guess I was curious. But just as I was about to reach her, she completely vanished. Next glitch. So, I'm not too sure where to start with this one, but a few years back, I had probably the oddest experience of my life. You'll see what I mean. It's not a detail or anything small. I was driving home from an out-of-town meeting. It was late, around 11 p.m., and the roads were pretty much deserted. So I was cruising along, a little tired but not too bad, when out of nowhere, I spot a massive fountain in the middle of the road. Now I talk about spotlights illuminating it, and not just a normal fountain, more like the kind you'd see in a big city park. It was complete with statues and everything. Naturally, I hit the brakes and skidded to a halt, a few meters from the fountain. I sat, stunned, for what felt like an eternity before I gathered my senses and got out of the car. As my feet hit the asphalt, the whole thing just faded away. The road was empty. No fountain, no water, no statues, nothing. Next glitch. just remembered another weird happening from some time ago. I was pretty routine oriented, so every day I would walk my dog around the block at the exact same time, 7 p.m. One evening we got to a certain point on our walk where there's an old grizzled oak tree. I always liked that tree, it was very picturesque. But this time, as we got near it, suddenly it was full daylight, like full-on afternoon sun beating down. People out mowing their lawns, kids biking, the works. I looked at my watch. Still 7 p.m. I stood there, completely petrified. The moment lasted for about a minute before everything changed back. Just like that, it was twilight again, and there was no sound of lawnmowers or children. I ran back home and didn't come out for 2 days. Next glitch. There's an old story in my family about an heirloom locket going back generations. It vanished mysteriously when I was a child, despite my grandmother keeping it in a safe. Fast forward to my first job out of college. I was far away from home in a crowded city, practically a world away from the nostalgia of my grandmother's little house. One day while cleaning, I found the locket in a drawer in my apartment, an apartment I had only just moved into. I thought it was impossible, as I had never seen it outside my grandmother's safe. I called my parents, and they were as shocked as I was. My grandmother cried with joy, and I promised to bring it back on my next visit home, but the next morning, it had disappeared again, just as mysteriously as it had appeared. Next glitch. Once, while spending the day at a downtown coffee shop, I inexplicably lost 2 hours of time. I'd been working on my laptop, and I remember sending an email and glancing at the clock on my screen, which read 11:46 a.m. I blinked and glanced back at the screen. It now read 1:52 p.m. Absolutely nothing else seemed to change. The same barista was still behind the counter. The same song was still playing on the coffee shop's radio in the same spot, as if only seconds had passed. I asked the barista about the time. She simply shrugged and said it was almost 2, indicating the shop's wall clock. I checked my sent email folder, and the email I had sent at 11:46 a.m. was there, with the correct timestamp. There was no other email sent or website visited in the intervening 2 hours. It's like I had just blinked and lost 2 hours of time. Next glitch. Many years back, while on a vacation in Rome, I visited the famous Colosseum. I wanted a guided tour, but the tickets were sold out, so I decided to explore the place on my own. As I was wandering around, I was fascinated by a particularly detailed carving of a gladiator etched onto one of the walls. I found it so inspiring that I spent a good 15 minutes admiring this piece of ancient art. Weirdly enough, though, the following day when I visited the Colosseum again with a tour guide, I couldn't spot the carving anywhere. The guide insisted that they had never had a carving of a gladiator. I'm still clueless about where it disappeared to overnight. Next glitch. A few months ago, while driving home alone from work, I got stuck in a pretty nasty traffic jam on the highway. To pass some time, I was listening to the local radio when I heard the DJ congratulate Alex A. on his new job promotion. He said the full name, I'm just avoiding it here for privacy reasons. Now that's me, Alex A. And the freaky part was, I got an unexpected promotion at my job the next day due to events that are not worth telling here. I still have no explanation. If you're still here, thank you very much for listening to these stories. If you want, you can leave a comment or subscribe. See ya.